Imagine walking through London. The air is thick with smoke, the streets frozen with ice. Each breath feels sharp, like glass against your lungs. Winter is not only a season here, it is an enemy. The rich ride in warm carriages. The poor huddle by street fires. The city shows two faces at once: golden progress and bitter survival. London's beauty hides a cruel heart when the cold arrives. Winters like these tested every soul. Imagine yourself there. Could you endure the cold nights, the hunger, the endless fog? Stay with me in this journey, and don't forget to subscribe. Your support keeps history alive. But this tale is not only about cold weather, it is about survival, invention, and the human spirit. From poisoned air to frozen homes, from sorrow to celebration. Let us step deeper into London's brutal winters and uncover their secrets together. London in winter was not only cold, it was hidden. The fog rolled in from the Thames, mixing with coal smoke, until the air became a wall of gray. People walked slowly, afraid of what they could not see. Street lamps glowed weakly like stars trapped in clouds. This was the world of endless mist. The fog was not gentle. It carried a dampness that froze into your bones. Horses stumbled on icy stones, and carriages moved like shadows in a dream. The city became silent, muffled by frost and fog. For many, this silence was frightening. It made London feel like a ghost city, half real, half lost in the haze. When winter settled in, frost claimed everything. Windows bloomed with icy flowers. Iron railings glittered white in the dim light. Even bread left in shops grew hard before noon. The city seemed to wear a crown of frozen jewels, both beautiful and cruel. But frost was not only decoration. It stole heat from homes. It cracked wood. It froze water in pipes. Poor families woke to find their bedding stiff with ice, their breath rising like smoke. Even inside, there was no escape. London was dressed in frost, and its people had to endure it day by day. The streets were a challenge every winter. Boots slipped on ice, carts overturned on frozen ground. Workers had to push forward through snow and mist, carrying coal, bread, or water. Children wandered barefoot, hoping to sell matches or sweep chimneys. Each day was a fight against the cold. But even in this struggle, there is a story worth remembering. And if you are enjoying this journey into the past, take a moment to press like. Your small gesture warms this channel, the way a single candle warms a room. Together, we keep history alive through stories like these. The Thames in winter was a river of shadows. Sometimes it froze at the edges, holding small boats captive in sheets of ice. Bridges groaned under the weight of frost, while fog rose like a curtain from the water. Travelers crossed with caution, listening to the creak of wood and stone in the frozen silence. This river told the story of London's winters. It gave mist, it gave danger, and it gave life to the city. And yet, the fog and frost were only the beginning. Ahead lay the coal fires that darkened the skies, the very breath of the city in winter. Will you follow me deeper into the smoke? London lived on coal. Every fire, every lamp, every warm room came from black stone carried through the streets. Coal was the heart of the city, beating with smoke and heat. Families kept small piles in corners of their homes, guarding them like treasure. Without coal, there was no survival in the long Victorian winter, but this treasure was heavy with cost. Coal filled the air with ash that drifted over rooftops, settling on skin and clothes. It covered the river in dark dust and painted the snow in black streaks. To stay warm meant to live in smoke. To breathe fire turned to poison. Londoners knew the smell of coal as the very scent of winter, familiar and unescapable. The fog of London was not only mist, it was smoke made thick by thousands of chimneys. Each home sent up its own cloud, joining into a sky that turned brown and gray. The sun dimmed, weak and pale, as if swallowed by the breath of the city. For many, winter meant walking through shadows darker than night. Children coughed as soot clung to their lungs. Women scrubbed endlessly at windows that never stayed clean. Even the rich could not escape, for smoke seeped through curtains, filling grand halls with its bitter sting. The city breathed poison, and yet it had no choice. Coal was life, and coal was death, wrapped into the same flame. On winter nights, firelight was both comfort and trap. Families gathered close, faces lit by orange glow, while smoke crept along the ceilings. Coal fires gave warmth, but at a price hidden in every breath. The poor burned scraps of wood, or even trash when coal ran out, their homes filled with fumes more dangerous than the cold itself. Stories like these show us how survival demanded sacrifice, and, if you wish to keep uncovering forgotten lives, frozen in time and smoke, take a moment to subscribe. With one simple act, you join this journey. You help bring back voices long silent, and together we give warmth to history once more. Coal left behind more than warmth. It left stains that never washed away. Walls blackened, clothes dulled. Snow turned to soot within hours. Even the river carried a film of ash, flowing like a mirror of smoke above. London became a city marked by coal, its very stones soaked in darkness. And yet, this was only one side of the Victorian winter. Beyond the poisoned air, survival was also written in fabric and fashion. How people dressed, how they layered and wrapped themselves against the cold. Shall we step now into the world of gowns, coats, and furs, and see how style became a shield against the frost? In Victorian winters, fashion was more than beauty. It was armor against the frost. Women wore gowns of heavy fabric, layered with wool petticoats, shawls, and cloaks. Men wrapped themselves in long coats, scarves, and gloves, turning every street into a parade of fabric and frost. But even with these layers, warmth was not guaranteed. The cold slipped through seams, biting at fingers and faces. People clung to furs, wool, and leather, dreaming of a comfort that never fully came. Clothing was survival, stitched with hope and fear. Each thread carried the weight of winter. Not all had the comfort of coats and cloaks. The poor wore patched clothes, thin and worn, barely enough to shield them from the frost. Children wrapped rags around their feet, pretending it was footwear. Every gust of wind was a battle they could not win. Charity gave out old garments and workhouses offered rough wool, but these were never enough. Fashion marked the line between survival and suffering. The poor became shadows in rags, while the wealthy shone in velvet and fur. The city itself became divided by fabric as much as by wealth. Clothing in winter was also a language. The wealthy displayed fur collars, silk gloves, and elegant hats. Each piece whispered of power, while the poor wore silence stitched into rags. In the frozen streets, fashion became a symbol of who could endure and who could not. And as you listen to these hidden details of the past, I wonder what you think. If you lived in Victorian London, what would you wear to face the brutal cold? Leave a comment and share your thoughts. Your words keep this journey alive, just like voices from history. For the Victorians, winter clothing was more than comfort. It was survival wrapped in fabric. Fashion showed class, wealth, and endurance, but beneath it all was the same struggle, to stay alive in a city where frost ruled the streets. And yet, homes told their own story. Inside those grand houses and tiny rooms, the battle against the cold continued. Drafts slipped through cracks, ice formed on walls, and fires burned low. Shall we step now inside these frozen homes and see how winter lived within four walls? Inside many Victorian homes, the cold never left. Drafts slipped through windows and doors, turning bedrooms into chambers of frost. Families woke to see their breath in the air, rising like pale smoke above their beds. Children wrapped themselves in blankets, yet still shivered as the chill crept through the walls. Even the wealthy could not escape entirely. Grand houses had fireplaces, but they only warmed one room at a time. Servants hurried to bring coal, yet the warmth vanished as soon as the fire dimmed. Life indoors was not a shelter from the frost, but another battlefield where comfort and cold fought endlessly for control. The poor often lived in single rooms, damp and bare. Their fireplaces were small, their fuel almost gone. Many burned scraps of wood, broken furniture, or even rubbish to fight the frost. The smoke stung their eyes, but the fire burned out quickly, leaving nothing but gray ash. Cold pressed against the walls, forming ice on ceilings and windows. Water froze in jugs. Bread hardened on the table. For these families, winter was not only discomfort, it was hunger and despair. Each night was a gamble, each morning a victory simply for waking alive. Yet, even in such conditions, families found moments of light. Songs sung quietly by the fire, stories whispered under blankets, prayers spoken before sleep. The hearth was more than heat. It was memory, hope, and togetherness, even when its flames were weak. And if these voices from the past touch you, if you wish for more people to discover the hidden lives of Victorian winters, take a moment to share this story. Like passing a flame from one hand to another, your act spreads warmth and keeps these forgotten memories alive for others too. Homes carried shadows in winter. Drafts whispered through corridors. Frost painted patterns on windows. Silence filled empty rooms. Life inside was not safe from the season, but a quiet reflection of its cruelty. Walls did not always mean protection. Yet, beyond the home, the streets of London told their own story. Crowds pressed together, sellers calling out in the cold air, children darting between carriages. Outside, survival meant facing the frozen capital itself. Shall we step now into the streets and witness how London's poor and rich endured the frost side by side? The streets of London in winter were filled with voices. Vendors called out to sell roasted chestnuts, hot pies, or coal for the fires. Their cries echoed through the mist, blending with the sound of wheels on frozen cobblestones. To earn a coin, they stood outside for hours, their hands stiff, their breath white as smoke. Some sellers burned small fires in iron baskets, warming both themselves and their customers. But many shivered in silence, their goods turning cold before they could sell them. The frost slowed trade, yet survival demanded presence in the streets. To work meant to endure, no matter how bitter the air became. Among the merchants and workers were those with nothing. Beggars sat on corners, wrapped in rags, holding out trembling hands. Some sang softly, others simply waited, eyes hollow from hunger and cold. Children tried to sell matches or sweep snow, earning only a few coins to keep them alive. The frost was their true master. Many froze where they sat, found lifeless when morning came. Yet the city moved around them, rushing past, too busy to notice every silent figure in the snow. The streets were filled with life, but also with shadows that winter swallowed without mercy. There were chimney sweeps with soot on their faces, delivery boys pushing heavy carts, water carriers, cab drivers, and lamplighters moving through fog and frost. Each one shaped the rhythm of the frozen capital, their bodies weary but determined. They kept London alive, even as winter pressed hard against them. And now I ask you, imagine yourself walking these same streets wrapped in the cold mist. Would you be a vendor, a worker, or a child with a basket of matches? Leave a comment and tell me what role you think you would have played. Your words keep history alive, like footprints left in the snow. Despite the frost, the streets never slept. Music drifted from pubs, children played with snow, and vendors called out into the mist. London's soul beat strongest in its streets, even when the air froze and hunger gnawed at its people. The capital of empire was also a capital of survival. But winter did not only test bodies, it also tested health. Illness walked with the fog, slipping into lungs and blood, spreading silently from house to house. Shall we step now into the world of sickness and sorrow, and see how winter became a season of death as well as life? Winter in Victorian London carried more than frost. It carried sickness in the mist. Influenza swept through families, striking the weak and the young first. Pneumonia followed, filling lungs with silence. And cholera haunted crowded neighborhoods, spreading with water that turned to ice at night. Doctors did what they could, but medicine was limited. People turned to herbs, prayers, and desperate remedies sold in dark bottles. Many homes became quiet with grief, as sickness claimed more than the cold itself. Winter was a season of mourning as much as survival. In the poorest districts, families lived pressed together in small rooms. One cough could spread through 10 people in a single night. The damp air made every breath heavy, every corner a nest for disease. Winter turned narrow alleys into pathways of sickness. Hospitals overflowed, and graveyards filled quickly. Priests walked the streets with prayers, while undertakers carried bodies through the frost. To be poor was to face illness with little chance of escape. The cold was cruel, but the sickness it carried was even crueler. Each winter, newspapers told stories of lives cut short. Children lost to influenza, mothers gone to fever, fathers taken by the damp chill. Their names became numbers, yet their stories lingered in the silence of the streets. Every snow-covered grave was a reminder that survival was never promised. And, if you feel the weight of these forgotten voices, take a moment to press like. Your support gives life to these memories and brings back the people history left behind. Like the glow of a lantern in the mist, your gesture keeps the past from fading away. Yet, even as illness spread, life continued. Markets stayed open, carriages rolled through the frost, and families still gathered by weak fires. Grief was part of winter, but so was endurance. London carried on, even when its heart was heavy with loss. And beyond sorrow, there were also sparks of joy. In winter's darkest days, people found ways to celebrate, through music, food, and festivity. Shall we walk now into the glow of celebration and see how Christmas, skating, and laughter offered light in the frozen dark? Even in the harsh frost, winter carried moments of warmth. Christmas markets lit up the streets with glowing lanterns and stalls filled with sweets, toys, and roasted chestnuts. Families wandered through the mist, their breath rising like clouds, as laughter mingled with the sound of bells. Children pressed their noses against windows filled with candied fruits and toys they could not afford. Musicians played carols, and vendors called out their festive goods. For a few hours, the streets of London seemed to forget the hunger and cold. The markets gave people not only food, but hope, wrapped in lights and song. When winters grew cold enough, the Thames itself became a stage. The river froze, and Londoners stepped onto the ice with skates, sleds, and even small fires burning in iron baskets. Children laughed as they slid across the frozen surface, while vendors sold warm drinks along the river's edge. It was dangerous, yet magical. People danced on the water that normally carried ships and smoke. The city gathered in joy, forgetting for a time that the same frost also brought death. Skating on the Thames was a rare gift, one that turned the frozen river into a playground of dreams. In homes and churches, voices rose in song. Carols carried through the frosty air, blending with bells that rang across the city. Families gathered around small trees, decorated with candles and ribbons. Even the poorest lit a single candle, believing it could bring light into the darkest nights. And if you wish to keep joining these journeys into history's hidden winters, take a moment to subscribe. With each story, we breathe life into memories long past, and your presence makes the circle stronger. Like carols sung together, your voice adds harmony to this channel's story. Festivities gave London a rare glow. The frost and hunger still existed, but laughter, song, and firelight softened their sting. Winter was not only sorrow, it was also joy shared in moments of unity. But behind the singing and markets, life continued its harder rhythm. Inventions, machines, and new ideas were slowly reshaping how people faced the cold. Shall we step now into that world of progress and see how technology began to challenge the frost itself? For centuries, open fireplaces were the only defense against the cold. But in the Victorian age, coal stoves appeared. Small, iron furnaces that spread warmth more evenly. Families could now heat not just one corner of the room, but the entire space, changing the rhythm of winter nights. The stove became a symbol of progress. It allowed the poor to stretch their coal further, and the wealthy to enjoy steady comfort. Yet smoke and soot remained, clinging to walls and lungs. Invention brought relief, but also reminded Londoners that every flame came with a shadow. Horse-drawn omnibuses and, later, early trains changed winter survival. No longer did workers need to walk miles through ice and fog. Now they could climb into carriages, sheltered from the worst of the weather, and reach their jobs with at least some warmth in their bodies. These inventions reshaped the city. Shops could stock goods from far away, and people could travel beyond their neighborhoods, even in the frost. Winter remained harsh, but technology began to fight back. The streets echoed with the sound of wheels and whistles, a new rhythm of survival in the frozen capital. Not every invention was grand. Some were as simple as thicker glass for windows, rubber for boots, or new fabrics for coats. These small changes softened winter's cruelty, giving ordinary people a chance to stay dry and warm. Progress was stitched into daily life, one detail at a time. And now I ask you, imagine living in that time, with frost on your windows and smoke in your lungs. Which invention would have meant the most to you? Leave a comment and share your thoughts. Your voice keeps history alive, just as these inventions kept people alive. Every invention brought a little more light into the cold, from stoves to transport, from clothing to medicine. Technology began to shape winter, making survival less of a battle and more of a balance. Yet the memory of brutal winters never left the city. And so, as we close this journey, let us step back. Let us see Victorian London not only as a place of frost and struggle, but also of endurance and invention. Shall we move now into the final reflection and listen to what these winters still whisper to us across time? Victorian winters were cruel but also unforgettable. The frost carried hunger, silence, and sorrow. Yet it also carried the glow of lanterns, the sound of laughter in markets, and the steady rhythm of survival. In every frozen street, there was both darkness and light. As we look back, we see not only suffering but endurance. The people of London did not vanish beneath the snow. They walked, they sang, they built fires against the cold. Their lives remind us that even in the hardest seasons, the human spirit seeks warmth and meaning. The frost taught lessons that still matter. It showed how progress and suffering often walk hand in hand. how invention and poverty can exist in the same street, and how even in the darkest winters, people find ways to survive, to hope, and to share moments of joy. London's winters whisper to us across time. They remind us to value warmth, community, and compassion. They tell us that history is not only kings and wars, but also ordinary lives. Lives lived in fog, in frost, and in fragile light. We have walked together through the frozen streets of Victorian London. We have seen frost on windows, fires in hearths, and shadows in alleys. And now I ask you, what moment touched you the most? Was it the silence of illness, the joy of markets, or the inventions that fought the cold? Leave a comment and let us share reflections together. Your words are like small flames in the dark. They keep the story alive, reaching others who wish to walk these streets in imagination. Together, we bring warmth to history, ensuring that its voices are never forgotten in the frost. And so, our journey comes to an end. The brutal winters of Victorian London fade into mist, yet their echoes remain. They live in the stones of the city, in the songs of its people, and in the memory of history itself. May this story remind us that every winter, no matter how cruel, carries within it a promise of spring. That beyond the frost and fog, there is always light waiting to return. Until we meet again in another tale, let us carry these whispers of endurance with us into the quiet of night.